Hi, I'm Gavin Hodgson, fly fishing instructor and manager of Granger's Fishing Tackle here in South Kensington, London. We're going to talk you through some of the techniques and tips and help you get started in fishing. Okay, how to choose a fly rod. Many things to consider, but probably the most important thing to consider is what most people forget, and that is fly size. When it comes to fly size, that's the deciding factor on what line we need to cast the fly, and hence what rod we need to cast the line. So it works out that way. Obviously the size of the fish comes into the equation at some stage, but starting with the fly, if we look at things like the very small, tiny little black gnat, then we can get away with quite a light line for that. And on fly rod terms, we could even go down to the dinkiest little fly rod that we have in the shop, which is a 5-foot number 2. Now this little thing, it's not going to land very big fish, but it's perfect for that size fly. It's perfect for tight, enclosed little spaces, small streams. That's what it's for. That's what it's designed for. So stepping up in fly size, so if we go to things like, small dry flies, standard dry flies for stream fishing for trout, or even small stillwater for trout. Then we'll look at line sizes of 4 and 5. So if we look at a 4 and 5, let's say this is a nice little 8'6" for a 4. That would handle those flies, and a 4-weight line would still give us pretty decent presentation. Perfect for the job of fishing for trout on small streams, medium-sized rivers, and even on small still waters where we're casting short and sight fishing for trout. When it comes to considering larger waters for trout, places like reservoirs, we often need to cast bigger flies. So a fly that size would be a real tricky thing to cast for any of the rods that we've mentioned so far. I would opt for a 7-weight. A good 6-weight might cast it, but a 7-weight's a safe bet. And where we would end up fishing with multiple flies, so you're fishing that as a point fly and perhaps 2 droppers, then a 7-weight's going to be your best choice of rod. And a 9'6" or a 10-foot number 7 is a very popular tool. 9'6" number 7, good reservoir rod for bank fishing. Little boat fishing would be good too. If you're going to opt for the boat fishing, then a 10-foot rod would be the best. Stepping back to trout fishing on streams, there are certain times of the year where our fly choice has to increase. So our fly choice size has gone up from the tiny little guys to the mayfly. So when we see mayfly hatching, we're going to have to step up the line size. Our light line rods just simply won't cast these flies. And I would, more often than not, choose a 5 or a 6. 6 would be the best line size to cast a fly like the mayfly. It's the one time of year where we really need to step up our river rods. So trout aside, we've got a lot of other species to catch. If we look at saltwater fishing, we start casting heavier flies, larger shrimp or bait fish imitations that really just need a heavier line to throw them out there. We play around with the fly line tapers to get them to turn over bigger flies, but in general, an 8-weight or a 9-weight fly line would handle that fly much better than a 6 or a 7. And when we start looking at saltwater rods, here we've got a nice 9-weight set up with a reel on it. This is the kind of outfit that we choose for that, with the appropriate fly line. Moving on from there, then we look at the larger saltwater species. Here's a tarpon fly, can be used for many other species, but to land something like a big tarpon, you obviously need a fairly heavy rod, but you also need a fairly heavy rod to cast flies like this. That's a rabbit dressing with marabou at the front. That's going to be quite a heavy fly when it's wet. And certainly fishing with your 8-weight or your 9-weight, you could cast it, but it would be a messy presentation and you'd struggle in certain situations. Stepping up to a 10, 11 or even a 12-weight fly rod, that would handle that no problem at all. And when we look at a 10-weight fly rod in comparison to the 8-weight, it's a little beefier in action, a lot heavier in the butt, quite a powerful tool. Going for the absolute maximum of most people's saltwater fishing, when it comes to casting things like large saltwater poppers. That's a huge hook. That's about a 5 or a 6/0 Gamakatsu hook with a large popper head and quite a considerable dressing. So that's a heavy fly to cast, and it's certainly a handful for most casters. But if we're using the right tool, something like a 12 weight, then that job becomes much easier. 12 weight fly rod is a heavy rod to cast all day long, but in general this type of fishing, we're only casting it when we're seeing fish, so we're covering fish with these big flies for a few moments, a few casts, and then moving on, and hopefully hooking up. So that's how you choose a fly rod. Consider the fly first, then the fish, and obviously the fishing situation that you'll be in. The line size and the fly are what lead to your fly rod choice.